Nice to have you with us. I'm here until 6:30. Julia Hartley-Brewer will then take over with her breakfast show here on Talk TV. But let's take a deeper delve into some of the big stories of the morning, now joined by the broadcaster, an animal welfare campaigner, and you'll know him by his media appearances and his affinity with helping Pen Farthing get all of those animals out of Afghanistan in that disastrous evacuation, and of course the war of words between Pen and the government. It's Dominic Dyer joins us this morning. Morning to you, Dominic.
Morning, Christo. How are you? It's good to join you.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us this morning and to go through some of the bigger stories with us. Now, before we talk about some of the big stories, including an animal welfare story this morning, you have a new charity. Now, is this your charity or one that you are involved with?
It's one that I'm involved with, actually. It's a very special woman that's launched it called Samantha Hutchinson, who's a very successful lawyer in the City of London. I've actually not known very long. I was introduced to her by another animal rescuer. But basically, she's put a huge amount of her money and time into setting up a new foundation called the Power of One. And what the Power of One will do is basically tap into that vast amount of wealth that she works with every day in the City of London to bring money to support small dog rescue charities working in places like Egypt, in Ukraine, in Turkey, in Romania, that, as you know, work, hand to mouth, trying to look after dogs in the most difficult conditions, often women who are fighting for both animal and human rights in the most difficult places in the world, trying to alleviate huge suffering. Now, Samantha has a large number of dogs from Egypt, is very involved in helping some of these charities, but wanted to start a new platform that would really put this on the map, and she's done an amazing job with a wonderful launch event last week in London.
Which I was supposed to be at, and then I had a COVID panic, which I felt very foolish about. I actually spoke about it on the show last week because my partner had hay fever and came in feeling terrible, and I said, oh my God, you've got COVID. And it's that awful dilemma, isn't it, that I'm not worried, maybe I should be, but I'm not worried about COVID anymore, about potentially catching it or anything like that, but it's how much your obligation should be about worrying that you might give it to someone else who does worry about it, and whether you should keep yourself isolated or not. But we were in that terrible dilemma, so sadly I wasn't able to attend. But how do animal charities then around the world access some of this funding? Is it that Power of One sort of assign money to certain charities that they're involved with, or can charities apply to Power of One?
No, there'll be a grant system that we're setting up, and already money is being distributed from money that's been raised by Samantha and some of the money she's put in herself, and she's been incredibly generous in what she's done. But yes, the idea here is these are small charities, Christo. In some cases, they're not even charities. They're just basically individuals, often women, who set up small sanctuaries in places like Egypt or places like Romania, where there are terrible street dog problems if you ever go on a holiday to those countries. And they're often fighting, the authorities and governments, and there's a lot of intimidation and threats. It's a very difficult environment for them to operate in. And maybe operating on £50,000, £100,000 a year. So, £5,000 to them makes a difference about being able to feed their dogs or transport them and do the things they need to do. So this is not for big organisations like the Dogs Trust, RSPCA do a wonderful job. This is for those small organisations that are doing incredible work in the most difficult parts of the world.
And if people want to donate to Power of One, presumably they can just find it online, can't they?
There is, yes. We've got it on the website, there's Twitter feeds, Instagram. We're doing more work this week. We had Leona Lewis at the launch event. She was incredible. She sang passionately and spoke about the charity, and a video is about to be released with a song as well that we hope will go into the charts. There's a lot more people are going to hear about the Power of One, but yes, you can get involved online, support us, make donations, and there's a lot of events coming up that we hope to involve more people in as we go forward. It's exciting, and Samantha's amazingly enthusiastic and a powerful figure in this movement.
I'm hoping to be able to attend some of those myself. The only major charity, I say major, the only major donations I ever make to charities is the small dog charity in Cyprus, and it's called Saving Pound Dog Cyprus, SPDC.
Yep.
And it is exactly it's so funny how you describe it. It's these two women that hear about dogs that are stray on the streets of Cyprus, or that are injured or that are ill, and they go to them, they find them, and they're literally then putting donations on Facebook saying, look, we've got this dog, we need vet bills, we need some food, and literally my accountant says I've got to stop giving them donations. Actually, my accountant's furious that you've got to stop. What is this? There's another one. But, sending them £100, which is, not an insubstantial amount of money, but to them, it
makes a big difference.
Huge difference.
These are not charities with huge administrative costs. These are often individuals giving up their life for it, Christo, as you see in Cyprus there, and we see it in other countries. On the night, we had some really moving presentations about Sri Lanka, Egypt, Turkey, Romania. Obviously, very powerful videos and lots of images. But meeting the women, predominantly women, there are some blokes out there like us who care a lot and doing great work as well, but this is predominantly women. And that's the big issue that came out of this, and I feel very passionate about this, as does Samantha. This is a battle for human rights and animal rights, which is why we're tapping into the city of London.
There will be some people listening to this, and we'll get onto the story about the unaccompanied minors being refused entry from Ukraine. Now, there will be people listening to that saying, well, hang on, why do these people worry about dogs? Why are you donating to a dog charity? There are humans in these countries, humans in these places. Afghanistan, I know that you took a lot of stick online for that when you were helping Penn get his animals out of Afghanistan. What do you say to those people that say, well, look, it's as terrible as it is, there are bigger priorities than the dogs or animals in these places?
Well, on the night, we had a video we put together about Ukraine, and we brought, charities that have been operating on the border areas and in Ukraine, risking their lives to try and help people and animals in the biggest movement of people and animals we've ever seen in history. And as you know, I've been working with the British government to ensure the refugees that are coming into Britain, and over 50,000 are now on their way into this country, thankfully, are able to bring their dogs with them and their cats with them as well. So these animals are very special. A Medal of Honor was given to that small Jack Russell yesterday, in Kiev, the president of Ukraine with the Prime Minister of Canada, because of, what this dog had done, a heroic, work this dog has done saving soldiers' lives. I think this war in Ukraine has really made us think about that very strong bond between people and animals, and how important it is to our physical and mental health and the well-being of a nation. And when historians look back at Ukraine, they'll say this was a war about animals as well as about people.
Now, what is this story that you found today about unaccompanied minors being refused entry from...
This worries me, and I think it worries a lot of people. I've seen, you go past the Home Office, there's a protest continually day in, day out there, trying to say that we've got to improve the way we deal with these visas coming in for people from Ukraine. I worry about the Home Office. I'm sure you do, and many others do, about how it operates. And often I think
they're also working from home as well.
They are, and I think it's a mentality thing with a lot of the officials. They put a lot of obstacles up. And maybe this is because, the view has always been the Home Office is more to keep people out than allow them to come in. Well, that's a debate to be had about how people enter this country. But when you have a situation like Ukraine, where the government has made a clear commitment to allow refugees in this emergency situation, they need to move every obstacle out of the way. And I think the problem we have, and to a degree we had this with dogs, but the government moved on the dogs situation quickly because they didn't want dogs and cats to be parted from women and children, and all what that would mean in terms of the suffering that would bring. But with unaccompanied minors, there's an issue here. And there's a danger here because there's more and more evidence to show that children are being trafficked out of Ukraine into Russia. And you can imagine what could then happen to them into sex trafficking, organs, and all the other things.
So what's actually happening? So these are children of the war in Ukraine who are on their own.
Yes.
And then why aren't they able to get here to the UK, and what's happening to stop that?
They're not fitting into the boxes the Home Office puts into its very detailed, complex system you have to go through to get a visa, to be honest with you, Christo.
And they're not equipped
because they're not a family unit, so they're falling off the system, and the civil servants are saying, hold on a minute, we don't have that in our system. You can't come. And this is dangerous because, there are lots of children that are at real risk because, as I said, they could be taken out of Ukraine into Russia, and they could go into terrible things from there on. So I think the British government has a child safety issue it needs to address here, as well as an immigration issue, and it needs to ensure that unaccompanied minors can come in as soon as possible and given safe, secure accommodation with people in this country. And I think that's really important that we make that happen. And this is just one element of the system that is still not working the way it should do.
These, as you rightly point out, they're children.
Yes.
And it seems staggering. And it seems... I'll tell you what I can't get my head around. I understand the depth of feeling and people's worries, whether you agree or disagree, whether you want people. We saw a protest last night with Priti Patel when she was giving a speech regarding the refugee plan when it came to Rwanda and sending refugees there. I understand the depth of feeling regarding people who come over on boats from over the channel. Because there are questions. They've passed through safe countries, whether they've come from a war zone, whether they are fit, healthy men who are economic migrants, or whether they are genuine refugees. So I understand why the government might say, look, we need to look at that carefully. But the British public are behind the government, you can see that they're women and children coming from a war zone. You can see what's happened in Ukraine. And so it seems to me woefully misjudged that they've not acted faster on this.
No, I agree with you. And this is not my only concern. There should be a piece going out on Channel 4 this week, because you spoke about Nowzad. Well, it wasn't just Nowzad for me. We went back for the Mayhew Charities people with another private rescue operation, spent £500,000 lifting them out of Afghanistan. They're in Islamabad with their animals. These are vets, vet nurses, families, members. And we've been fighting with the government for 6 months to try and get them entry. And the piece on Channel 4 will tell a story of how I think they've become the forgotten refugees. And we've seen this week in Afghanistan how things have got even worse. The burqa is back, human rights abuses, the economic collapse, everything we feared about the Taliban. Remember, back in August, there were lots of commentators popping up, Christo, going, oh, it'll be okay, the Taliban are new. It's a fresh, new Taliban. They're going to be more liberal. They're not liberal. The country's an absolute disaster. We can't send these women and children, their animals, back to Afghanistan. So they rather come to Britain. We're talking to the Canadian government. We're doing everything we can.
And these are people that helped us. These are people who help.
They are, and they can help animals, Christo. This is the thing. They all have job offers from veterinary companies in this country, generous offers of job placement. So this is not about a burden on our tax system and our social security system. And you know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see Afghan vets in our veterinary surgeries treating the animals of Ukrainian refugees. To me, that's a virtuous circle of helping people do a job. And we are desperately short of vets and vet nurses in our economy at the moment. And if you speak to any vet, they're under real pressure just dealing with the numbers of animals coming through the door. So there you go. But we need to look at immigration in that way.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about a story regarding donkeys, which it's a really awful story, which was revealed this morning before we came on air. We also will have a conversation about energy bills and your thoughts on what you think the government should be doing about this. Heating or eating is a dilemma a lot of people are facing at the moment. So when we come back, more from Dominic Dyer, broadcaster, animal welfare campaigner, here on Live